welcome to the 2021 Toyota Supra GR. This is the 2.0 that features the 4-cylinder instead of the inline 6 made by BMW. And today we'll be reviewing it. So I spent the last day in this car, and I will say that it is a blast to drive. It is a lot of fun. But it is also very tight in this interior and definitely offers some compromises to, you know, a sports car that honestly would take it away from being a consideration for a daily driver for me. The issue just is with the fact that there's absolutely no room in here. Another issue with this car is that the infotainment system is just extremely difficult to use. You know, I come from a Hyundai, which, you know, they've definitely been better in most recent years, but they still don't have the greatest of reputations. But their infotainment system is far better and easier to use than this one. Girlfriend accidentally clicked a part of the map, and it used that part of the map as our destination, and we couldn't figure out how to disable it, and it just kept talking to us, and it was trying to take us in loops around her neighborhood until I found a small little button in the corner that was a checkered flag, and you just click it and it unchecks, and that is how to disable the route. Where in other cars there would be a button that says cancel route or stop. I mean, you know, I'm complaining about little things, and you know, primarily what will be used as a sports car with Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. So, you know, you'll never even really have to experience that, but I just want you guys to know everything about my experience that I had with this car. The last little gripe I have would be the fact that this screen and my dashboard, they don't brighten enough. It was actually a really bright day yesterday, and for some reason they were stuck as if they were in night mode, and I tried turning off and on my headlights, nothing changed it. I tried turning it up with this little button here, and honestly it doesn't change anything until I'm pretty sure after you shut off and turn back on the car, from what I found. But anyways, those are the little gripes I had. I'd like to, you know, I don't want to start the video with a bunch of negativity, but I want to tell you guys all the things I didn't like about this car, because the rest is honestly so good. So I think that obviously, you know, these Supras are made by a lot of BMW parts, and that's really been their biggest concern from, you know, the whole, you know, car community. But I will say that I think that kind of takes away from what this car is. I mean, obviously, you know, it feels like a BMW. It's got the BMW shifter. It's got BMW infotainment. You know, BMW engine. But I just think that this car is just so much fun. I mean, it has so much character. And I just think that focusing on what manufacturer made most of its parts is it's a silly way to think of things. It's so much fun. It'd be a great sports car for a lot of enthusiasts, and it just has so much character. And I think what makes sports cars great is, you know, their character, their personality. And this car has a ton of personality. Let's get into the feel on the highway. So obviously right now I'm in sports mode. I've started this entire video in sports mode just because if I were to own a Supra, this is how I would drive it. Because normal mode, right here, if you just unclick sport mode, it's actually really tame. It is incredibly tame. It'll leave you in the lowest gear possible. The exhaust valves actually close, so the car becomes a lot quieter. And overall, it almost feels like you're driving a very condensed and tight Toyota Camry. So there's not a lot of sound deadening in this car. Obviously, you know, we're cruising at highway speeds, so it does get a little loud in here on the highway. But as far as being able to, you know, keep center in a lane and just kind of comfortably cruise, this car can do it easily. I think that it also feels like I'm going a lot slower than I actually am. On the highway, it's supposed to get up to like 32 miles a gallon. Over the history of this vehicle, it's averaged about 23, but it is actually a rental from Turo. As far as the interior goes, it's actually quite nice in here besides being tight. There's a lot of, you know, pretty soft materials here and there. There's some well-made stuff. There's obviously, you know, the entire door sill, the door panels are just complete plastic, so keep that in mind. But where you rest your elbows is kind of like a soft leatherette. And then there's some fake carbon fiber here, but honestly, you'd rather this be the fake carbon fiber than the gloss black, because if it was gloss black, this whole thing would just be disgusting. And honestly, it's kept clean pretty well so far. So what I found interesting is you actually can't turn off your headlights while you drive, while I can also connect my phone to the infotainment system while I drive, which is a much more distracting process, but regardless, I just found it was kind of interesting that, you know, you can do one, not the other. As far as visibility goes, you know, this thing has an orientation like a sports car. It's low, I sit really low, and the windows are quite small. But I will say that I actually have really great visibility with these large mirrors and, you know, the blind spot monitoring, and I can see out my rear really well. So honestly, I have no complaints as far as visibility goes in this car. It's definitely a lot better than driving a Camaro, per se, because in a Camaro you actually can't see anything. And I understand that's also a sports car, but I feel like regardless, you should make your greenhouse and your vehicles be able to, you know, see what's around you, see your surroundings. Because, you know, at the end of the day, safety is the most important thing. The steering is actually extremely direct in this car, and I absolutely love it. Like, it's actually just so much fun just trying to, you know, play around with the handling. And like I said before, the car is very confidence-inspiring. I will say in sport mode, if you're just kind of like driving around, or like you're stuck behind a couple people that are obviously going way too slow for you, the suspension can be quite jolty if like you kind of just let off the gas suddenly, or you get on the gas too suddenly. And so luckily I've, you know, kind of developed a light foot for cars like this. But if, you know, you're fairly new to driving sports cars and you get in and you just put it in sports mode, you'll definitely have a bit of a learning curve before you understand, you know, how to cooperate well with the car in sports transmission settings. As far as I've been able to tell, we obviously don't have heated seats in here. We do have, you know, pretty good air conditioning, dual climate control system, which is great. I will say I wanted to enjoy yesterday with the windows open, but I found even with both windows open, in certain wind directions, you still get a ton of buffeting, even with them both half open, 75% open, fully open. I couldn't get the windows to not buffet. And it wouldn't be a consistent buffet, so like, you know, you just all of a sudden get a ton at once, but you also can't have one window open and not the other. So keep that in mind as well. Once you get in this car, it's honestly really easy to, you know, get to a comfortable position. There's plenty of adjustments with the seats, mostly being manual, but the little like lumbar bubble that comes up and down from your seat actually is electronic, obviously. Obviously, when you get on the car a little bit, you can definitely hear some cracks and burbles, which is cool. The exhaust note is really great in this car, and it gets a ton of attention. So if you're someone who likes a ton of attention in your sports car, you'll definitely get it in a Supra. I've only had this thing for less than 24 hours now, and I will say that I had a ton of people come up to me and ask me about it. So another thing I wanted to showcase in this car, maybe not a lot of people care, but I definitely think it's important to show. So obviously, you know, I'm in drive right now, and say I want to get into reverse. My mirrors actually fold down to show, you know, my rear tires, so I obviously don't, you know, scratch them or whatnot. And then this one kind of folds up to show what's directly behind me. And then obviously we have a pretty good camera. You can see here this isn't bright enough. Maybe it shows better for you guys, but simply, you know, it's getting brighter out now that it's, you know, becoming more towards the daytime, but like it's just not bright enough for me. Like in my car, I actually have no issues with this whatsoever. In this Supra, I've had tons of issues trying to be able to see it. So, you know, it has a really good guide onto how to back up into the spot properly, and we'll just see how it goes, right? I mean, I think I'm a little off, but I can adjust right here. I think this camera system, you know, how to back up in spots with it, you know, just the reverse camera in general and how the mirrors work well with it, it's great. You know, it all cooperates together. The system works well enough where even with not a ton of visibility, like this car gets it done. I would have no issues like parking this thing at a car show. You know, obviously the mirrors come back when I do that, and see, put it back in reverse. Mirrors obviously bend down, come back up. And one last thing about the mirrors is if you press this little button right here, they fold in, and boom, park your car, press that and the P button puts it in park, and actually the auto start stop function turns the car off for you already. That's the one thing I don't like about it, but if you just pop it back in drive, turns back on, can unfold your mirrors, and we're good, right? So I think, you know, this Supra, although it's a sports car, it does provide you some pretty good assistance as far as, you know, parking, driving on the highway. And obviously you got your Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, it connects wirelessly. You can get in the car without using your key. It has keyless entry, but I couldn't find the locking mechanism. I mean, I could just be not touching the door handle in the right place, but I just could not find that locking mechanism. And how do you just not have a ton of fun in this car, right? The one thing with the sports mode and the normal mode, obviously they, as far as like the settings go, things are drastically different, but the gauge cluster doesn't really change at all. And I don't mind the gauge cluster. I think it's nice and simple, and it actually kind of like it's kind of like a throwback to, you know, the 90s, it seems. But I definitely wish it would change maybe a little bit for the sports mode. The one thing it does do is like add those little extra luminescence towards the red line in the car. So obviously the one I have is white. If I were to buy a Supra, I would probably go with that red, or maybe the black, but I don't think I would choose this car in white. A lot of people have liked this color a lot, and, you know, obviously thought this car was good looking, but I just think that the red or the black are my two favorite of the colors. There's also a couple cool grays, and then there's that yellow. The yellow I don't think suits the Supra all that well. I definitely am not like a hater on the color yellow. I think that on some cars it does really well, like obviously Lamborghinis, but not on this car. With that being said, I definitely recommend buying, you know, a Toyota Supra, whether it be the 2.0 or the 3.0. I haven't driven the 3.0 yet, but if the 2.0 is this good, I'm sure the 3.0 for, you know, another 10 to 12 grand would definitely be worth it. I will say that in the $40,000 range, I can't think of a ton of cars that would compete with this thing. I mean, there's, you know, like a Kia Stinger GT, $40,000, maybe like the BMW 2 Series with the M package. Yeah, I mean, like a... Is that like base Alfa Romeo money, Julia? I'm not sure. But yeah, I think that like the $40,000 segment, definitely having another car such as the Supra is great, because that might be a segment that a lot of people are in that really doesn't have a lot of vehicles to choose from. Obviously the Nissan Z will compete in this segment too, so that'll definitely provide a lot of competition for this Supra, especially it being you know, pretty well reviewed from automotive journalists. Obviously I haven't gotten to drive one yet, but I'd imagine it'll be, you know, quite fun. And that one maybe having its own platform rather than this Toyota Supra, that might be more appealing for some people. But I don't think people should be so caught up in the fact that BMW made a lot of this car. I think people should just enjoy the car for what it is. You know, it's a great sports car. It's a great option to, you know, drive on the weekend. And maybe if you have a small commute, you could daily it too. I definitely wouldn't recommend dailying it for anyone who has a long commute. But I mean, the seat bolstering works well, even for, you know, someone who's over 200 pounds. I'm also 5'10", so I'm not really the tallest. I mean, I have the seat not fully back. There's definitely more adjustments to be made. So if you're taller than I am, I'm sure you could fit in this car too if you push the seat all the way back. Obviously there's no back seats, so you know, you get plenty of room to adjust for leg room. Yeah, with that being said, I definitely highly recommend the Toyota Supra. I don't know if I were to give it a rating out of 10 for being a sports car. I'm not Doug DeMuro. I don't have my own Auto Joe score yet. Maybe that'll come next, but this car definitely, you know, it checks all the boxes for it being a sports car with also some comfort features as well. As far as the interior goes, compared to like the Mustang GT, I think it's a lot more sound in here. Things are screwed together more tight. There's less rattling. It feels like a more expensive car than that Mustang GT did, although the Mustang GT did have like heated and cooled seats, heated steering wheel. But I just think the fact that the materials that fit this interior are just a little bit higher quality than that of that Mustang. And both being in around that price point too, so I kind of definitely had a brain fart earlier when I was talking about the cars in this price point, because the Mustang GT is definitely in that. But yeah, with that being said, please like and subscribe for more content, and also shout out Alex and Abraham on Turo. If you're in the Boston area, they are out of Woburn. They're two great guys who have two Toyota Supras and I believe a Model Y. So if you really, you know, if you're looking for a nice fun car to enjoy Boston with, definitely hit those guys up on Turo. And I'll link their website here and in the description. So yeah, check them out. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.